Hush hits all the notes.
22 copies of X-Force Annual #1 still in the bags. I think I need that. I think I need that.
And then ended up like selling them for like pennies on the dollar
Yep.
years later. There's nothing that makes me think Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee quite like a foil cover.
All in on the most random issues possible. Rob's the man.
It's Rosie
Yeah,
the
it was-
robot with pouches and machine guns.
Wait,
Did he say cable? You beautiful man.
Rob's a rock star.
It's Shatterstar. I mean, it's Timmy Heague. How are you, sir?
Guys, how you
How-
doing?
Good. How are
good
you,
to
man?
see you.
Likewise. I'm all right. I'm just plates spinning like crazy. I've been at my the dismantling of the warehouse for about 2 months now, and I'm in the final days. And today I've been waiting all day for people to, or a freight company to pick up 2 pallets of junky comics. Yeah, I'm just excited to be done with the place. It's just been a project all summer long, it feels like. It's crazy. You never think when you make a warehouse how much is going to suck if you ever dismantle the warehouse.
Well, I'll tell you what, for a guy who's sitting in his warehouse, your hair looks great.
Appreciate it. Likewise,
In
Joe.
a cool
Thanks. Your
t-shirt.
hair
Cool
always
Hey,
looks
t-shirt.
great,
I did
dude.
it for you guys. I'm not to make you feel special,
No,
or
you
anything,
didn't,
but
because your
no,
hair always looks
I
great. I always tell
so
you that on Twitter.
appreciate that. Yeah.
So, you're writing Archie comics?
Archie comics, Valiant comics. I'm doing
No, but you're doing Bloodshot with Valiant, right? Didn't you just?
yeah. I They let me create a new villain for Bloodshot, which
Oh,
is which was pretty wild. I It was one thing to write a story, but then when I was like, I'm gonna pitch something that was co-create, I'm gonna create this villain, and Sergio Mones, who I co-created with, who I've never talked to the guy yet, but he really did a great job bringing it all to life. So I'm really stoked to meet him and talk to him. But he brought it to life, and it looks killer. So Sergio, I can't wait to talk to you.
super sweet of you. I was so grateful. Like I was genuinely touched at heart, and I was like, "Wow, he came through and he did it, and you thought of us." That
Yeah,
meant so much to Scott and I.
my
So thank you.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I got nothing but great things to say about Jeff. Yeah, I've visited with the Ghost Machine office a couple times since, and the dude's awesome. Like the dude's the real deal, and that office too is just killer. He's just got original artwork everywhere, and just seeing how the sausage is made for Ghost Machine, it's really cool stuff. I'm loving all those books. I'm loving reading them, selling them. I'm excited for more. Like the next wave of stuff is coming out pretty soon here. The Hyde Street one.
So with Archie,
Yeah,
are you writing like a one shot for that Bloodshot
yeah.
or like a
So it's
maxi
like
series? Like,
so Archie's
tell me
whole
what's
bit
happening.
is like pretty much like they just started doing mini series again for their horror line. So actually today they announced a superhero thing too, which is pretty fun. But no, I'm pretty much just like a happy soldier to do whatever any publisher is always down for me to do. And Archie, it's one shots I've been doing consistently. I got digests out this month, next week, and then the following month. So I started with them doing the world of horror last year, and now this year I'm more with the traditional humor type stuff. I'm, just putting my comedic modern spin into the world of Archie, and it's the dream. And in October, my first superhero work comes out with Valiant, where
Mhm.
I've done a Bloodshot story, and I've co-created with Sergio Miones this new supervillain. I wrote the character and gave my little design notes, and he's brought it to life, and it's awesome.
You,
And then what was really cool is I got to sign comics at San Diego Comic Con, which was
so,
just such
dude, I saw you do that, and I was like, "That's so rad. That's awesome."
yeah, it was a surreal, like, just what is my life type of experience,
Mm.
because they put a crucial page in my story in the Valiant Ash Can for San Diego Comic Con for the Bloodshot anthology. And so yeah, the page is the debut of the character. So it was technically like it was a really fun thing. It's like the first cameo appearance because there's no dialogue. You don't see his face really. Like he's in the shadows. Like you can kind of make out what the character is, but you don't get the full look. And yeah, so the ash can is technically the first cameo appearance of the character, and it was
Cool.
really cool to see my name there in the ash can, and people are having fun me signing it. I had Kevin Van Hook at the booth, who's the co-creator of Bloodshot, so I was signing books with him. it was a crazy experience. I'm
That's
still kind
super
of in
cool.
disbelief that wow, that was an actual moment in my life. Nuts.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah,
Imagine if Vin Diesel came, right?
You know what's funny about that is I still haven't seen the movie. I still haven't seen
Me
it. And
neither.
but yeah, the I've never seen the Vin Diesel movie. I don't think I will. And it's funny. I was making the joke to a buddy the other day who I'm doing Flash Gordon comics, Phantom, Popeye, Dennis the Menace, and Mandrake the Magician. Oh, and Prince Valiant with. I'm doing all these one-shot stories for this UK publisher that has the licensing rights to those characters.
Mm-hmm.
And we were laughing over which movies we've seen of these characters and haven't. And of all those characters, the only movie I've seen is Dennis the Menace from the early 90s.
I
I
Mm-hmm.
love
saw it
Dennis
as
the
a kid
Menace from the
like
early
on
90s. That was a
VHS.
great movie.
Yeah, it's a fun movie, but I've never seen The Phantom with Billy Zane.
I've
I've
seen
never
that.
I've
You're not
never
missing
seen
anything.
Popeye.
A lot
Your
of charm.
useless fun fact of the day, when I was looking up research for my Popeye story, I was like, wait a minute. What's the harbor? What's the village like that Popeye lives in? And because you're like, wow, that's weird, you don't know. Like usually like in your head, like as a person, with all these characters and cartoons, you just kind of know these things. And that's because he doesn't have one. Like they don't give a name to his harbor, his town, his village, whatever,
Is that
but they
true?
did for the Robin Williams movie. And your useless fun fact on top of that is wherever they filmed it, I couldn't tell you at the moment, but it's some little country, wonderful looking place, looks just like where you'd think they would film Popeye. They've to this day, well, as much as the Wikipedia article is updated to this day, who knows if it's still there, but it was a 7 day a week amusement attraction for people to go to. Like they had Popeye puppet shows, mascots, actors, and they turned the set of the movie into a whole thing. And I just find that so fascinating.
Yeah.
I made the joke to my buddy Ryan, who's doing the artwork for the story. I was like, well, I guess we got to do a road trip.
Yeah, cool.
You
I
actually put
always
that
kind
on my
of
radar now.
like
I got to see that again.
the
Hmm.
Popeye movie. I gotta check it out. I just always worry that like whenever I watch movies in my like research stage for writing a character, I don't ever want to like pull something from the movie, but then it turns out the character only had it in the movie and never like in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that happened with the Phantom a couple years back with the publisher I'm writing that Phantom story for. Is someone did a bit where a laser comes out of his ring, I guess, and or one of his rings because he's got two in each hand. See, I do my research, and in the Billy Zane movie, I guess a laser comes out of the ring. That's not a thing at all in Phantom comics. And someone, I guess, tried to do that in one of the comics. They're like, no, 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 big no. That's only the Billy Zane. And I never want that to happen to me with my comics, because
Sure.
it's comics first, everybody, comics first.
Right.
The Bloodshot movie I hear is pretty okay though. I hear okay things. Like I heard it's like a fine Sunday afternoon type of cable TV movie.
Dude, you just summed it up perfect. That's
Yeah,
what I was
yeah,
thinking. Like back when I was a kid on WPIX
yep,
11, they always had a Sunday movie,
yep,
and it was like a popular movie like 5 or 10 years ago.
yep,
Wait, did he say cable?
Cable?
yeah.
What?
Cable. I know.
I said
Yeah,
cable.
yeah.
Speaking of cable, wonderful segue. You beautiful man. So cable, did you meet
Yeah.
Rob Liefeld at San Diego?
No, I've met Rob Liefeld like two, three, no, God, three something years ago now.
Come on, guys.
He signed at my store. He signed at one of my stores.
Oh,
All
that's
right,
super
because that was
cool.
another thing I
Yeah.
was telling Scott. I'm like, I haven't seen recently that Timmy has had Rob Liefeld, but I wonder if he's ever had him.
Yeah, yeah. I had him about 3 years ago. He Rob's the man. Like he's the coolest dude. He will talk to fans all day long. He'll geek out with fans. Rob's awesome. Rob's a rock star.
He loves the LCS thing.
Totally, absolutely.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
big LCS guy.
yeah.
No, Rob's cool, and I'm in awe of him.
Come on, guys.
Of like the type of thing he's turned his artist business into. Like it's a whole operation. Like he does covers, he does writing, interiors, but then he's also like really heavy into like doing his live streams and he's got his podcast and
He's done
His
really
it's
well with the
podcast is
podcast.
wonderful.
It is
Yeah,
really good.
podcast is
yeah,
awesome. We're
and
big
it's just the
fans.
whole thing.
Scott's
And
Scott's
press
even bought a couple of his wares on Whatnot. So
What did
nice.
I got a blood strike something about 3 4 months ago, and before that I got a signed foil the introduction of Deadpool.
there's nothing that makes me think Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee quite like a foil cover or an embossed
Oh, for
cover.
sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. It's
what
just it's the epitome of 90s.
Brian, I didn't tell you, but I my hands were shaking. I was on eBay about 3 days ago, and someone had a listing for 22 copies of X-Force Annual #1 still in the bags for like $100. And I'm like, I think I need that. I'm like,
yeah, I need that. I need that like this. Yeah,
I
yeah,
need
yeah, yeah. That's
22
awesome.
copies of X-Force Annual #1.
It is so common when you buy comic collections that like you'll get a 90s collection and you will find someone that like went all in on the most random issues possible, like just packets and packets of just
Guilty,
yeah,
guilty.
yeah, it's
Dude,
so funny.
dude, I did that after Jim Lee did Hush, and then it was announced he's doing Superman with Brian
Yep,
Azzarello. I bought like 20 on eBay, like 20
yep.
of the what was it, like Superman 207 or
Mhm.
something, and then ended up like selling them for like pennies on the dollar
Yep.
years later.
It's
That's the fun of it.
Yeah.
yeah, it's and it's very fascinating, like because I think about that a lot whenever I get in a collection that has that storyline
Mm.
of this, the Jim Lee Superman with Azzarello, and like it's a really fun take on Zod, and like I love Azzarello, but the whole collectible and spec market really, and even just like in terms of like it becoming one of those essential reads that people just read over and over again as a graphic novel. I think really the catalyst was they should have just gate like, and I love Brian as a writer, Azzarello, but like it should have just, I think, just been Jeff Loeb. Like they should have just done like Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee again on Superman. But maybe there's a reason they didn't. But yeah, I kind of think that was definitely a big part of why that didn't hit in the same way Hush did. Because like
Mm.
when Hush came out as single issues, I mean, it was a phenomenon then too. Like people were
I was
going crazy
subscribing at the
for it.
time.
Yeah, like Jim Lee was on Batman. There was a new character. There was a detective element to it. Like it just like Hush hits all the notes. It might be like one could argue that Batman Hush and Batman Court of Owls and City of Owls are like the top two modern Batman contenders of the last, 2 decades.
Wow, wow, that's super interesting because I'm not a giant Batman fan. I rely on Brian to like read this, read
Sure.
that, and I've done the Court of Owls and I've done Hush and enjoyed both of them. So it's interesting for me to hear you say that Court of Owls is in that circle too.
Yeah, that was huge when it came out. Like that brought a lot of people back. Like I remember even starting to buy more of the hardcovers when Court of Owls came out.
It's still selling like crazy. Hush is still selling like crazy. They're still reformatting these books to just bring in new audiences. It's really fascinating. It's
Dude,
really, really
when I got my first ever Absolute edition, it was Absolute Hush,
Was
and
oh
that
it
your
was
yeah.
first
like the
one?
holy grail for me.
Okay.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I read that thing, went through the pages, like I studied that thing like it was law, man. I loved it.
Yeah, there's just some books where the artwork you got to read blown up in absolute style. It's just, it's awesome. I one of these days I'm going to figure out the perfect just furniture comfort tool to be able to lay on a couch or a bed and just have an absolute edition or an omnibus just so easily and just yeah, because that's the thing in concept. I love omnibuses, love absolute editions, but if I'm going to be reading a comic at my leisure, it's going to be on the couch or in bed, whatever. Maybe the beanbag, maybe, bring back the beanbag out of the college dorm days. And it's just not so ideal to do that with an omnibus or hardcover. So maybe that'll be my next business venture, creating the Omnibuddy. There you go, patent pending. The Omnibuddy.
You should do
Yeah,
like the Arsenal bedtime omnibus holder to where you can have it
I like
and
that.
it's like a
With
tray.
the Right, yeah, with the train, it's got like a drink holder too.
Yeah, you got
Absolutely.
your drink holder
Absolutely.
and it keeps it right
Yeah.
there for you. Because I have actually, even the other night, I was reading an omnibus and I'm laying
Yeah.
in bed and I'm like, wow, this is so cumbersome. And I read like the first couple issues and I'm like, I got to sit up and read this next time. So
Yep.
Huh.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
But
I feel it.
yeah, the Bloodshot stuff, that issue's out in October. It's issue 2 of their Black, White, and Bloodshot. And yeah, and then I got all the UK licensing type stories for the, I'm calling it like the Golden Age characters. I got all that coming starting in November as well. So that'll be November onward. And then next year, I will have my first 4 issue miniseries,
Cool.
which I cannot say what it is, but it's gonna be rad. I'm really
Cool.
stoked on it.
Cool.
Yeah.
You should have a Bloodshot. You should ask if you can have one issue where he has like patches, like no pouches to like
Oh,
honor Rob Liefeld in like 90s comics. Be like, can I add like 6 pouches for this one page? And
well, after Rob did
I don't want his
thing,
I don't want his
you know,
feet
there was
shown.
just
I don't want feet shown on this page. So,
All pouches, no feet.
all pouches, no feet.
all
So
pouch see. That's good. It was, what was it, Pouch Bound or just the Pouch from a couple years ago where he like leaned into like, he was kind of having some laughs with himself. It was, I think it was just called the Pouch, right?
I don't
yeah,
know.
Where,
yeah.
where it was like a character just made out of pouches. It's
Just
great.
all pouch. The
Great.
pouch.
Yeah, the pouch, that's it, the pouch.
Yeah, the pouch. Just like in the trailer for the Deadpool and Wolverine, you see like Liefeld's foot store behind them, which
Yeah,
is
and
really
that
funny.
was good. And it's
Yeah,
in the movie
Did
it's
they
pretty
include that
prominent.
in the trailer?
Yeah, yeah, it's in the
yeah, it
trailer.
was in the
That's
trailer.
Yeah,
Yeah, in the
perfect. That's
background.
yeah.
perfect. I knew it was in there. I saw that it was in there. I didn't know it was in the trailer.
Yeah, yeah, it
It's,
was funny. It was funny. I like that.
you
So
guys
as
like
we go, huh?
did you guys like the movie?
I
I
haven't
haven't
seen it
seen.
yet. Haven't seen it yet.
Oh, what did
It's
you?
all right. It's all right. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. Some people went crazy for it, and other people like, yeah, it was cool for like what it
Yeah,
was. It was an
yeah,
experience, but it's not like you're
yeah.
gonna, buy it and watch it 1,000 times. So
That's exactly how I feel. Like I enjoyed watching it. Um, but I don't know when I'm next going to see it again, if that makes sense.
no,
But
I
what were you going to say before I cut you off rambling about Deadpool Wolverine?
oh, it's all good. It's all good. Um, I have a question about CGC. Do you sell a lot or some in your store? Like what's your
Um,
attitude toward graded comics?
I'm very much like a go with the flow and go with the market and just go with my market. And I've definitely chilled out on submitting stuff. If it makes sense, it makes sense. But like, I just like times are different now. Like, I'd rather just, unless it's like a Silver Age, Golden Age first appearance of like a big character,
Mhm.
um, I'm just kind of like, all right, let's just sell Raw as is and just, have it find a home.
Do you find a preference lately, maybe in the past like 3 to 6 months, where people are like, nah, I don't want CGC, I want Raw.
you know, like it's really whatever I have to sell. Like if I have like a long box of a bunch of keys, unless it's something where the difference is really substantial, I'm just gonna sell as is. But if we're selling CGC like in my store, 90% of the time now it's I bought a collection and they were already graded. I
Mhm.
just don't really have the time anymore to like send it, pack it up, send it off, get the capital and the cash flow back for like 2 months later. I just don't really have the patience or the capability
No, I
anymore.
totally appreciate that. I've
Yeah.
tried to move some CGC stuff that I have, and I
Yeah.
found myself, this is like in the past year. I mean, granted, the economy hasn't been great, but I mean, some of them were really good. Like the first appearance of Miles Morales, I got it signed by Bagley and Bendis, among others.
Yeah.
And like I like broke even on that, even after I submitted it for grading, and it came back with the same grade, the 9.8.
The
And I'm
market's
like,
weird.
man, maybe
Yeah.
CGC has lost a little luster. And then on YouTube recently, I watched this guy Sticky Goose Comics, and he was saying even he himself, he's noticed that there's been a lag in CGC, and some people actually cracking open their comics and selling them raw because they can't move them on eBay graded.
Yeah, it's when it worked, and I feel like the pandemic years, the pandemic cash years were crazy for CGC. Everyone was
Yes.
getting graded and selling it. But now a 9.8 on something just doesn't really matter as much as it used to, unless it's like a big key or anything. So yeah, I pretty much when it comes to CGC just really stick to like if it's an Avengers one or first appearance of a major Silver Age or Golden Age character. And you know, sure, if I had like a big modern crisp, you know, book in front of me that was a modern big key, like an Ultimate Fallout 4, for example, do I if it is a for sure 9.8, I'll look at what I can sell it raw, the last sold listing versus, the last sold 9.8, and I'll do the math. And really what I'm doing is time versus money because it's like, oh man, 2 months to get this capital back just to make an extra 150, $200. I mean, sure,
Right.
150,
Right.
$200 is 150, $200, but like I'm not making hand over fist like I used to, like times are different in this economy right now. And like, it is what it is. And like 150, $200, it's like a lot of money to me nowadays. So I'm
You
just
could
kind
Yeah,
of
turn it
like,
it's a
over
lot
and
of
use
effort.
it
You're
again
right though,
within
but
that
I've thought that too. It's
yeah.
a lot of effort just
And,
for
and like for a guy who's just like I'll be frank, like my to-do list is never ending as a shop owner, as a guy who's doing as much writing gigs as possible, for a dude who is paid by other comic creators to do their marketing. My that's why I'm closing my warehouse. I'm gonna figure out what to do on my plate that makes the most sense, is worth the most time and money, and also fun for me.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
taking that back to CGC, it's just kind of not fun for me anymore, mailing off a book for 2 months and then getting it back. Like, don't
yep.
get me wrong. Again, if it's a mega book, then it's a different story.
Right.
But like, I couldn't be bothered, and I would rather just have it find a home ASAP.
Yep.
What
Makes a lot
what
of sense.
about the thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
You answered my question very much how I hoped you would.
Yeah.
What about like obviously the speculative market isn't what it was in the 90s, obviously. But do you feel like you have much speculation that comes into your store, or is it just regular folks who want their comics?
It's ebbs and flows. Um, the speculative market is definitely chilled out from what it was. Again, it's all, in correlation to the pandemic cash days. That's when, the pandemic cash flow really affected the spec stuff. I mean, it was that era where D-list Marvel character is going to be in Disney Plus show, and then, it's
Moon Knight, like
yeah, it's skyrocketed,
200%. Yeah, yeah,
and whoa, hey, Moon Knight's at least a B plus C character now.
yeah.
But no, and it's different now. Like it's not just is it like different in terms of value and like the hype, but you don't really get the announcements that often anymore. And it's, it kind of actually worked to my advantage because I'm involved doing the marketing and stuff for the Dark Horse series Minor Threats. And we did the Netflix announcement about like 3 weeks to a month ago. And it was just really interesting to me because as I was like going through the motions of like prepping for it all and like, getting the word out about the Netflix show, I realized like, wow, like 2, 3 years ago, this probably wouldn't have been as big a deal in the news as it was that week when we did it, because back then, 2, 3 years ago, it was like an announcement like that was happening every other day.
Mm.
And now it's pretty sparse. I'm sure somebody would listen to this and watch this and go, that's not true, Timmy. There's a Netflix announcement every other day. But definitely for me, it feels like compared to like 2, 3 years ago, it's more sparse and in between.
Yeah.
So that plays into it. And yeah, and that was interesting too, like from a spec standpoint, is like seeing that book go up in value after the announcement. It's creeped up. Issue one of that book's creeped up to 15, $20, which is pretty fun. So it's fun seeing that. But yeah, it's not what it was 2, 3 years ago, where
Sure.
D-list character who appeared in West Coast Avengers, becomes a, a quarter book to a $25 book overnight.
Well,
But with that,
what
yeah,
about Spider-Man? Like I know the Hickman Spider-Man when that came out, it sold out pretty much everywhere, and I know that you were like, "Hey, this
yeah,
is
yeah,
awesome! It sold out."
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did you feel you had any specs come in for that, or do you feel like
Oh,
just
for sure, absolutely. I And it's funny, the word spec also plays down to when the comic book retailer has to order on final order cutoff. Like, wow, is this book going to be a hit? And that book was the first time in a while that there had been a hit like that, of
yeah,
that
yeah, a long
velocity.
time, long time.
And yeah, and how it affected the aftermarket and just word of mouth and people just wanting to read it. And so yeah, I spec'd on it and I ordered high, and I should have ordered even higher apparently. And I ordered very high compared to like what, my numbers are for a book right now. And yeah, it did great. And then towards, a week after selling out, then you get all the people who are wanting to pick it up because they've heard so much about it and the hype. And then you have the people who want to pick it up just because they're curious if we have, a $7 comic, $6 comic, whatever the cover price was, that they could turn into a $25 bill, $30 bill or whatever. And yeah, it was an interesting time. It's weird. Sometimes I wish there was something like that every week, but then it's also like, well, if it happens every week, then it's not as special when it does happen, and it's one of those things.
What about, thank you. What about the adjacent titles? Like I know Ultimate Black Panther sold out, right? Didn't that do it? And
Yeah, Ultimate Black Panther did sell out. I ordered an okay amount of that. I That one was a tough one because Black Panther numbers are not crazy at my shops. So I did take a big risk ordering pretty high compared to Black Panther numbers. And issue one had that ultimate hype, and there was some, aftermarket prices on it before the book even came out. So we did pretty well on Black Panther. It was nothing compared to Spider-Man, my order numbers, but it was pretty good, and it's retained a good amount of readership. Like I'm still holding pretty strong on Ultimate Black Panther.
about
Brian,
the
who
Ultimates.
oh, the Ultimates does pretty okay.
Yeah.
It's definitely not the monolith that Spidey was. Like I kind of think Ultimates should have came back or should have debuted with the others at the same time, in my opinion. But it's still doing pretty good. I'm excited to see how that one shot does that they announced, where it's like a annual ultimates kind of like tying everything together book. I think that's really smart and interesting. I'm excited to see what they do with that. Ultimate X-Men's been very interesting. People either really, really love a Peach Momoko book, or they really just love her as covers, or they just don't care for it at all and aren't into like an anime manga-esque X-Men book. It's been really interesting. But my shops are very Peach heavy, so it's been selling pretty well for sure.
Mm. All right. You mentioned X-Men.
Yeah.
So how's the relaunch with Gail Simone and David Marquez? Is that on like a second or third printing now, or
Yeah,
what's the
it's doing
deal?
really well. People seem to like it. I mean, granted, the books that like I know will do well and be popular are those two, Uncanny and then just X-Men. Everything else, like it's gonna probably do fine, but it just, it's way too many titles, unfortunately, in my opinion. But it is what it is, and they're gonna find their audiences, and I'm sure they're all gonna be great, fantastic books. But I'm always a big believer in less is more, and you
Yeah,
have a
sure,
small selection, and then maybe build up or do some rotation.
sure,
But with that being said, I'm glad they're giving all these books out to creators I love, and like I'm friends with Alex, who's doing the Sentinel book. Um, if it wasn't for Alex on it, I probably wouldn't be excited for it, just because I'm like, wait, a Sentinel book? Wait, what? But Alex, he's been Alex Palkanackle. Panackle. I always slaughter his last name. I'm sorry, Alex, if you're listening to this. But his stuff's great, and I'm excited for the Sentinel. It looks really weird and fun. And Marvel's been giving him weird, fun stuff. Like his Red Goblin book's weird, in a really fun way. But yeah, like I'm kind of curious what they'll do with Dazzler. Like I'm excited for the Dazzler book they're doing, and I'm just very curious what Gale's got in store and how many arcs and what their plan is if they're trying to do another era of X-Men or they're just trying to tell really fun stories, which that's great too, Just give us fun, great stories. I'm up for that as well.
Okay. Well, fun, great stories. Here we go.
Yeah, which Gale is writing a Minor Threats one shot in the anthology series that we're doing. So her story is going to be rad. So if you like Gail Simone written comics, check out Welcome to Twilight City later this year. She's got a story.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah,
I had heard so much about her in the
yeah,
past from her Batgirl run, her Wonder Woman run, her
yeah.
Birds of Prey, and her Secret Six.
I
Great.
thought you kind of communicate back and forth with her.
I have a little bit. Ask her a question. Like the other night, I'm like, "Hey, Bane just shows up in the omnibus. What's the backstory?" She's like, "That just happened." I'm like, oh, "Okay." Um, but her stuff has been really enjoyable. The stuff that I have read, so
Yeah,
I've become a fan. Like I'm 3/4 of the way through the Secret Six Omni. It's a lot of fun. So, and
right.
it's my first time reading that stuff, so it's really cool.
That's right. You had me start on that one. I guess
Now, Timmy,
Yeah,
go.
yes, here we go. So you speak about fun stories. So let me tell
yeah,
you, back in 2011, there was this little event called New 52. You might have
yeah,
heard, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, dude, I loved I love New 52 Batman. Speaking of the Court of
Yeah,
Owls, I love Jeff's run on Justice League. Like that is
yeah,
unassailable. Jeff
yeah, yeah.
Johns, unassailable. And I loved a lot of the stuff that came out. There was also a lot of stuff I didn't really like. And
Sure.
then Rebirth was like, oh my goodness, like somehow McDonald's made a new hamburger that I thought was going
Sure,
to taste like
sure.
all the
Yeah, yeah,
others, and this is amazing. It's my favorite thing ever. And then that kind of dwindled away, unfortunately, in my opinion, a little too early. However, I digress. With this new all-in initiative and the absolute stuff,
yeah,
how do you feel? Because me, just going off your
yeah,
tidbits about being a shop owner,
yeah.
I'm like, oh crap, Scott Snyder's on Absolute Batman. I need to order like, 100 of these or 200 because people are going to go crazy. And the other ones I might order like more than I would because specs are coming into my store because they want Birds of Prey 14 with the new run, blah, blah, blah. Like
It's
how do
it's
you
really
handle that?
hard. It's really hard. It's in these weird economic times, I think of the line of you can't go out of business by selling out. Um, which there is a lot of truth to, but also you can't really you can't make a lot of money if you don't have the goods. So it's really hard. I I'm very month by month lately, so I'm just, I haven't given it too much thought. I would like to say whatever happens, October is going to be a good month of business, hopefully, with those three titles coming out and then the one shot. Because it's very like rebirth vibes, they're doing the
Yeah,
one
yeah, yeah,
shot.
yeah.
Um, but people like absolute Superman and Wonder Woman, I cannot really gauge what the level of interest is yet. Like I got one of my store team members, I love him so much, Oliver. He's hyped on Superman and Wonder Woman. So I'm that's a good sign. But I know Batman's gonna do really well. People seem really into the Nick Dragotta art. They really seem into just the design work of the character and the vibe. And Snyder's been pushing the book like crazy online. Like he's hyping it. He's rallying the troops. He's hyping his fans up, and I'm getting excited too. Like I got my hands on the ash can at San Diego, and I was flipping through it before selling it at my shops when I came home, and the artwork looks great. I If you would have told me a couple months back that Nick Dragotta would be doing a Batman book with Scott Snyder, I wouldn't have believed you. And now I am all in on the concept.
All in. Timmy, you heard it here first, folks. Timmy Heague is all in.
Yeah, all in. All
All
I
in,
am.
baby. Cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. I don't know what to expect. I am very into them bringing a guy like Dragata in, who's not the usual house style you see on a DC book, if there is a house style anymore. But he's different. And I think that's what we all need. I think we need different things in our books, in our big mainstream books. We need different. And I think this is the step in the right direction.
I agree with you. I would normally, if this happened back, a handful of years ago, I'd be hyped. But me personally, I've been hurt since Rebirth. Like I
Sure.
loved what they were doing. And I
Sure.
love that whole era. I love how there was the intertwining of like even in the Titans book, they'd mention
Yes.
Manhattan and be like,
Yes.
Manhattan, why are we hearing Manhattan? And
It
that
was
refers
very
back to the
fun.
one shot, and like everything was so well coordinated. And then it was like once Dark Knight's Metal came, it just like, and now we've kind of gone and fizzled out since then. And it seems like comics does that every 5 to 10 years. There's a crescendo, and then there's a evening, and then a decrescendo. And it's like, when
So
will we ever just have a steady thing? Do you think that'll ever happen?
I haven't read it, unfortunately. I really need to, but a couple of my retailer friends at San Diego were telling me that that whole thing you just described is happening in DC right now, leading up to all this absolute stuff. Like it started in the Superman House of Brainiac stuff, in the Chip Zdarsky Batman stuff, and even Tom King's Wonder Woman, and it's kind of like intertwining here and there, and that's what's led up to this Absolute Power miniseries. And then Absolute Power will be leading into all the Absolute titles. So I
But dude, remember when Snyder did Dark Knight's Metal? It's like,
yeah,
oh my God, the source wall exploded. We can make a
sure.
million stories. And then it was like, yeah. And then, so it's like, like, I guess what I'm asking is what is your personal, like, do you feel we're going to like sustain this, or are we just going to be headed toward more of the same in 5 or 10 years? Like, what do you think? I'm not asking you to like go on record, just as a fan to fan. You know what
I
I mean?
mean, even business aside, I'm kind of month to month. I mean, just thinking about comics 5 to 10 years from now is a heck of a concept for me to wrap my head around. But like, I I think I think DC for sure is very aware of what fans are wanting right now and what they're hungry for. And I do think this is the step in the right direction. In terms of longevity, I don't know. I really don't. I
Right.
just right now I'm just thinking about October and the
Sure.
months after, and hopefully it rides. I mean the Marvel Ultimate stuff's been riding pretty consistently and
Pretty
decently.
consistent.
I'm not,
What,
yeah,
what,
I'm
okay, so
thinking
let me
numbers.
be more, thank you for that. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude and cut you off, but I'm just very
No,
curious, very curious. Um, what do you think it is? Because I have assumptions of just certain things that I find off-putting, but other people seem to like. So I'm not saying I'm right. What do you think as a retailer and a fan? So you have like a lot of more insight than I do. What do you think causes like that crescendo to drop? It's because to me, I was telling Scott the other day, I said it reminds me of like a new restaurant that opens and it's like, oh my God, the food is so good. And then
sure.
like after 6 months, they're like, hey, you don't need to put so much seasoning on that steak, okay? You know what I mean? Just
It's,
serve the steak and people will love it. And it's like, no, they don't. So why does it do this?
every question with comics, I look at it, I call it my Timmy three-eyed vision of comics.
Okay.
I'm still title. I look at things like a retailer, I look at things as a guy who writes comics, I look at things as a guy who markets comics. And for that question, I mean, it's the thing that comes to mind immediately is editorial changes. If an editor leaves a book or moves on to another project, you never know if everything that was in plan for that series, for that publication, is going to stick. And then maybe, the next editor who takes over has another vision, or not even the editors, but maybe a publisher, the person whose title is publisher, maybe they change their mind. Maybe they are looking at the sales of these books and they're trying to figure out, in real time, okay, what can we do to pivot and change? And maybe that changes the entire course of things and it doesn't stick landing with the readers, the audiences. There's a lot of factors. There really is. I I think the last 2 to 3 years, every publisher has seen what has worked. I think they've seen what hasn't worked. I think they've seen what's especially worked and not worked post the pandemic cash days, where people are a bit more cautious with their item, with their money on luxury items. Um, I I'm cautiously optimistic as a retailer and a fan for the both, for what's to come. Um, I would love, like, I think readers and collectors and retailers are hungry for a good connected continuity type story. And I think that's kind of the success Ultimate Marvel is, again, because Ultimate Marvel is a couple titles with a shared continuity, and it's all coming together, and it's fun and it works. And I think to an extent that was the success of X-Men Krakoa, is it was very much like that. Um, and so I think DC doing that again with like Absolute and All In is a step in the right direction. What it's leading up to, who knows, like, is it, how do you, because you could say, what was DC Rebirth leading to Doomsday Clock or Dark Knight's Metal, and the timing of Doomsday Clock, and it's months in between issues, made things a bit, I think that's why they had to pivot to Dark Knight's Metal, because they had more of more of that lined up. um, but yeah, it's really interesting stuff. I'm always, as a retailer, cautiously optimistic. I never want to go crazy on something and turns out the fan base, doesn't love it, and then I'm stuck with a bunch of copies. Unfortunately, I can't really afford that nowadays. But
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
I think everyone's read The Room, and I I'm definitely gonna go big on Absolute Batman. Superman and Wonder Woman probably maybe double or triple my numbers for for the non-absolute versions of those books. Um, and in terms of the one shot, I don't think I'll go DC Rebirth one shot numbers, but I think I'll be pretty healthy on it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
The ways that I think of it are twofold. It's like you're telling me things are going to change now, but you're using pretty much the same writers and mainly writers, because artists, the art is a whole nother thing. If the story is good, even if the art's not completely great, people will still read, like myself. And I love art. However,
That's so very interesting you say that, because I I'm a loyalist to the medium, and it's a visual medium. And the thing about writing comics and looking at comics as, the writing side of things, is I've always said to myself that I have read a bad story with great artwork, but I've never read a story like that's like, it's hard for me to even read a good story with great art, or a bad story with good artwork I can read. But when it's a story with, you know, bad story, like, it's
bad
just
art.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard, but like, I
Mm-hmm.
think and that's why I kind of laugh when comics are always like, the Grant Morrison X-Men run. Like, that's my all-time favorite X-Men run, and I am guilty of calling it the Grant Morrison X-Men run, but it is very much the Grant Morrison Frank Quietly run, or
Very much
the
so.
Phil Jimenez, Ethan Van Sciver run. Like, it's just, comics are a visual medium.
Yeah.
And I I I definitely do see writers entering the realm of things and being consistent with DC and Marvel that are newer to those companies. So they are bringing in fresh talent for sure.
You feel that they are bringing in fresh talent, because
Yeah,
that's my overall point. Is it's like
it's there. It's creeping in.
you're telling me the food's going to be a lot better this time, but you have the same cooks making the food. It's like, well, how
Yeah,
can that be?
there's writers absolutely that have been around for a while, don't get me wrong, but like, I can think of off the top of my head, like Marvel's, give my buddy Tom work on the Marvel Zombie stuff, who does the primer book for DC Comics, which I love how versatile it is because Primer's a YA like pantheon on like the book market. Like Primer is one of DC's best-selling books in years and years, and now he's writing Marvel Zombies for Marvel. Like I love the capability there of, you know, him being able to do a diverse story. But yeah, like for DC in those books out in the fall, another friend of mine, Pornsak Pinchote, I think I'm slaughtering his last name, I'm sorry. But he's been doing books on the indie scene for like 4 or 5 years consistently. And now he's doing some DC work consistently. And I think that's really exciting. So they are letting in new people, but I don't think it's, I understand what you're saying. Like, it's not as blatantly all at once as it, like, I think you're only seeing a couple people in, and then you're still seeing the major guy, you know, the major writers who've always been there for a while. And I think that's just kind of how it always has to be. I think it always has to be a mix. We're just never going to get something like, you know, the 90s Image Boys again, you know, like,
That's like one in a gazillion, trillion,
yeah.
billion, zillion. I kind of feel like with DC, I feel like because I'm I'm mainly a DC guy, like 99%. And I kind of feel like it's your fiance broke off the engagement and cheated on you with like three guys, and then she comes
Well,
back to you and
crap.
says, "Oh, it's going to be different this time." And then you say, "Okay, I'll forgive you." You give it another shot. You put a ring on her finger again, and she does it again. That's how comics hurts me, you know. And I don't want to be
That was
hurt
a bit
again,
too specific. I'm kind of worried that's actually something here,
dude.
Brian. Um,
Listen, this will be cut from the audio, from the record, but I've had my share of women who I was like, why did I do that? Oh my God. And my I had my therapist tell me, hey buddy, remember, if you take her back, you're taking all of her back. And I'm like, right. So you're telling me it'll happen again. He's like, correct. So that was that.
He's not lying.
wow.
That's all I could
And
say.
I'm
He's
not
not.
lying. That's
No.
Scott knows that's a true story. So
But you know
what
what I
it,
will say,
yeah.
even the Image guys, you know, when they started Image, they even were like with DC and Marvel, you know, prior. So like everyone's got their start in, you know, previous ventures, and you know, then they, I mean, look at James, you know, Tynion, for example. Tinny and Tynion, I always slaughter that. You might as well just call this
Tynion,
the episode
James
where, yeah,
Tynion the fourth, Tynion
yeah,
the
you
fourth.
might as well call this episode the one where Timmy slaughters everyone's last name in
Great.
comics. It's okay.
How
Everyone
about
says
this?
Heague, last name is pronounced Hague, so you know
Yeah.
I'm it, you know it's all good. But yeah,
Great hair, bad with names. Watch now. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, even Mr. the Fourth, you know, was, you know, he was, you know, he was a writer, but he wasn't, you know, the writer. And, you know, 7 years later, now he's, you know, he's the top person. So it's, you know, or they the top
His
person. And
Joker, dude, his Joker, I had zero
yeah,
interest in. I'm like, this is so stupid. And then I read it and I'm like, oh my God, this is genius. Like I'm on the second of
yeah,
the third, I'm on volume two and I have
James,
volume three. And I'm like, this is so smart how he did this. I
yeah,
love this book. I love that
it
book.
rules.
Have you read it? Have you read it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
Dude, it's
It's
awesome. I
great.
was like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
Yeah, it starts with the Gordon like being the main guy, right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it almost feels like a spiritual successor to year one with Gordon. It's like
Hmm.
catching
Totally,
up
it's
with him
that
all
vibe.
these
It's
years later. Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, you know, I'm hoping fans resonate to it all and they're excited and they do indeed go all in.
All in.
We'll see. That's right.
All in. All right. Well, Timmy, I'm always all in for you, buddy. Like,
Appreciate that. Thanks, man.
since you came on the first time and you sent the comics, I genuinely have a an affection for you and I really appreciate you and I'm rooting for you like I don't know, what are we like 3,000 miles away? But I
Yeah,
really
that
I
means
care
a lot,
about you,
man.
man.
It's very mutual. I appreciate you guys having me on and supporting me. Yeah, it's the store turns 10 next month, which is
Cool.
crazy. And then
Yeah.
I'm now consistently writing comics, which is crazy. And
I think that's
I
awesome. When you
Yeah.
announced that on Twitter, I was so happy for you, man. I was like, that is awesome. That is so cool.
yeah, I'm a big believer in chapters, and like you know, I love owning comic book stores, but I think like maybe it's just the type of, personality I am or whatever, but like after doing it for almost 10 years, I just made the decision like, well, comics are the thing I love most in this world. How else can I explore that? And I've always, put being a creative person into my stores, and making it be as creative of a space I can make it. And,
Are
if
you the
it's
one who comes up with the videos that you post?
yeah, that's me. Yeah.
That is genius. I was telling Scott,
Yeah.
I'm like, you got to see this video Timmy made with Archie, and he
Yeah.
has
And
the two
that's,
young ladies in his shop in like the 50s dresses, and that was so cool. I
yeah.
loved it. It was great.
Yeah. That's like, it's all kind of weirdly like symbiotic. Like, me marketing my stores and being super creative with my stores and coming up with ideas for my videos and exclusive covers led into like me making the pivot to creating stories and
Yeah.
marketing my comics and my stories in a way that people notice. And like that's what fired off me writing comics. And then other creators seeing how I market my stores and marketing my comics is what turned into me doing it for other creators and being paid to market their books and coming up with videos and ideas. And I'm having the time of my life with it. If the stores like if it wasn't weird economic times right now and like it wasn't so expensive to operate comic shops in Southern California, for the various reasons and factors that go into operating a small business, especially in our part of the state, um, life would be pretty sick and easy. I'm having the time of my life with the writing, the marketing stuff, and like the stuff with the shops, I'm still having the time of my life, but like it's just still like it's still operating and owning a small business. And that's definitely like my big thing in life that, is always kind of like, rolling with the punches. And, I some days I see light at the end of the tunnel and that, it'll get better. And some days I'm just like, oh, geez, but I'm very committed to making sure my community always has the comic shop I've always wanted my community to have. And, I'm having the time of my life with it. And I'm having the time of my life writing and all the fun marketing stuff I do for creators. I'm having a great time with. I feel
Well,
very
thank you,
thankful.
man. I appreciate that. I appreciate your sincerity and your genuineness and your spirit. And thank you for
Yeah,
making time to
thanks.
come on with us, man.
Yeah, thanks for checking in.
Yeah,
Glad to hear good things.
thanks. Yeah,
Looking forward to your additional projects as they roll out.
thank you. Yeah, I got the 4 issue mini next year, and I think we can announce it in the fall. So that's gonna be pretty fun. And when that's announced, everyone's gonna go, okay, yeah, that makes complete sense.
Okay.
So that'll be fun. And yeah, I got an Archie digest next week, one in early September, and Bloodshot in October, and then starting November, I'll have all the UK licensing stuff for Flash Gordon, Phantom, Mandrake the Magician, Dennis the Menace, Popeye, and Prince Valiant. God, I need a
Super
chart
cool.
to keep
Yeah,
up.
Woo!
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm doing all those with my buddy Ryan Carr, who's a phenomenal artist. He just got announced yesterday a cover for Image Comics Skybound's Creep Show,
Mm,
which I'm so stoked and proud for him. And so yeah, he'll be doing the first ones we're cranking out will be our Phantom story,
mhm.
and then Popeye. And
Dude, you
I
better nail
never
that
thought
Popeye, or I'm gonna be. I'll
it's
call your store.
I appreciate that. I got the villain I'm using for Popeye is Sea Hag.
Oh
Uh
yeah.
I was cracking up over doing research for Sea Hag because there was like a Popeye wiki page or whatever, and it listed like Sea Hag's interests or whatever, and it was killing Popeye and killing everyone else. Like, okay,
In that order.
night guys.